Hello, welcome to Matters DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. On my last video, my Tao of RPGs video, I got an interesting question in the comments. Wesworld Gaming asked, with all the characters you've dealt over the years, who is your favorite and why? That's a lot to unpack, but unpack it I shall. Caused me to go back over one of my character folders. I've got dozens of these. And it was around the mid '90s that I started actively collecting my characters in folders, and it was around 2016 when I stopped and just started keeping them all digitally. Space requirements. I've got most of these in a computer somewhere, or at least some form of them. But being able to flip through the pages and whatnot, I've made a lot of characters. The answer that I will give you now is the same answer that I gave in 2007 when I was being interviewed for the Dungeon Masters. The character's name is Mark Duquesne. And I could just give you a 4-sentence summary of the character, which would not do him justice, but I could just give a brief summary and we'd be done. But I thought I would break down where the character came from, how the character evolved in my head, how the character came into play, and what has happened to that character since then. Because some characters deserve to be given a little extra time and attention. I'm going to go back to my very, very young days. With the beginning of my fascination with bionic replacement, prosthetics, cybernetic work, starting with a television show that came out when I was, 5, 6, which you may have heard of, called The $6 Million Man. Lee Majors starred as an astronaut who had been critically injured in a mishap with his spacecraft and was rebuilt at the cost of $6 million to artificial legs, an artificial arm, and artificial eye, which were vastly superior to the original components that he had, making him basically a superhuman. He was recruited by an intelligence organization and weekly went out and did action and adventure stuff, often running in slow motion to show us that he was running very fast, all of which was accompanied by the sound effect that I still hear to this day in my dreams. First or second episode, early in the first season, he finishes off the bad guy who had proven to be a very, very bad person indeed by shooting him in the face with a nuclear missile. And we're off and running from there. Love that show. And I guess every so often I looked for a way to pack more of that concept into a character I was playing. Playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're not going to get that opportunity a lot. Not second edition, advanced, with a bunch of guys who are very dedicated to the lore of what you were doing. Played games in Lankmar before Lankmar, the source book for Lankmar came out. A bunch of French Libre fans. But that kind of that got side-shelved for a little while. That my insistence on trying to fit it into every concept I possibly could got me a little mockery and derision from my peers, but what can I say? I like prosthetics and cybernetics and bionics. Biological electronics. The $6 Million Man coined the term. You still see it used occasionally today. And then one of my favorite toys factors into the overall character. Uh, I was a big fan of the original G.I. Joe, 12-inch action figure, beautifully articulated, uh, the men of action, and with kung fu grip and eagle eyes, depending on which version you purchased. Uh, the G.I. Joe, so it was all military themed, and yeah, that wasn't going to fly for too long. My very, very young days were still the days of Vietnam, and we're getting less and less acceptance for militarily based toys. That, and they were 12 inches, they were really solid plastic, and they became very expensive to produce in times of oil shortage. So uh, they rebranded in the 80s and went for a more science fiction themed and shrunk the figures down a little bit to more of an 8-inch size, kind of to compete with the Mego 8-inch action figures, which were just everywhere. Came out with the Super Joe series of toys. I had one of those, the Super Joe Commander. And damn if I didn't really buy into the aesthetic. The giant chest piece wasn't so much I mean, that was the gimmick. You pushed a button and the light in the middle came on. But it had a port on it, so you could buy him other equipment that required the same AA battery on his back, and you could plug his drill or his laser beam or whatever into the backpack, and you could use it, and it would light up or turn or what. Great, great action toy. The line didn't last very long because the accessories for it, a vehicle for an 8-inch action figure, still just kind of prohibitively a lot of plastic. So that got phased out, and years later we'd see the 3.5-inch figures come out, which were just more economic to produce. And as those improved, that's a whole other video talking about how that action figure line came about and evolved. So Super Joe Commander, I like the coloration, I like the uniform, the black with the gold braiding down, but that face, the he was the commander, but man, he didn't look like your typical red-blooded American hero of the time. Not blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and square of jaw, but that the beard and the mustache and the black hair and the he looked mean, looked competent, and that was the commander of the series. The rest of the guys were all like clean shaven and had brown hair or blonde hair, and like you know what? Nah. This guy, he's got something going for him. Oh god, I played with that toy until it fell apart, which was a trick because kind of durable. Buttons in the back so we could punch, and kind of the evolution of the kung fu grip, so we had good grippy hands. But still, yeah, that had an effect. And then there's the general character and the name. It is no secret to anyone who watches my videos that I'm a big fan of the science fiction author E. Doc Smith, who is rightly regarded as the father of space opera. And the Lensman series, just seminal for that genre. But that's not the only thing he wrote. He also wrote a couple of series. But among them, the Skylark series, a science fiction series featuring a hero who was so OP when the books started, and he just kept going there, that he became a parody of himself very early on. Richard Seaton, a great character, lumberjack, stage magician, nuclear physicist. When he started, expert marksman, perfect reflexes, keen intellect, all this stuff. He could just fucking do anything because, the story called for it. He was kind of a unpowered Superman of the day. Richard Seaton did not intrigue me. There's nothing about Richard Seaton that gave me, oh, let me guess, Richard Seaton's going to be able to figure some way out of this. Absolutely. Of course he could. Usually. We'll get back to the usually. But just as there was a cartoonish hero in the Skylark series also had a cartoonish villain. And that villain was Mark Duquesne. Oh man, Mark Duquesne, Blackie Duquesne, because of his general, the Caucasian, but generally his dark countenance, black hair, black mustache and goatee, and suddenly that aesthetic just kind of locked in there. And like, oh, I got a toy that I really like that's got that look to it. And Mark Duquesne was not as good at stuff as Richard Seaton was. Almost. Very close. And how very good Richard Seaton was annoyed Mark Duquesne to the point where Mark Duquesne made himself Seaton's villain. Just to prove that there was stuff Seaton couldn't do. Just so he could get up on him one little bit. No matter what it took. Duquesne would make analysis like, yeah, we had to fight together a little while ago, and I watched him, and I don't think I can take him. I fired 6 shots with my right hand and 5 shots with my left, and I missed twice with my left hand. He fired 6 shots with his right hand and with his left hand and didn't miss any of those. I can't take that. But early on in their adventures, sometimes they are forced together, as a hero and villain combo often are, and presented with a giant cosmic being of all power trying to take over their minds. It wasn't Richard Seaton's constant going over of his formulas and mathematics that kept that being from penetrating their minds. It was Duquesne and the meditation techniques he'd studied in the Orient and the Far East. And now I'm all in on Mark Duquesne because he had something. He had a mental discipline that could not be defeated. So much so that by the time you get to the last book in the series, it's a short series for Doc Smith, Skylark Duquesne, the whole universe, spoilers for a book series that came out before I was born, though the whole universe is getting attacked by these aliens who are going to take over and just wreck everything, and Seaton and his partners and Duquesne all get in on the same mental effort, putting on these helmets, controlling these giant spaceships, and altering the physics of the universe to take out these bad guys, and under constant mental stress, and Seaton just buckles. He can't do it. And Seaton's best friend, who's also wasn't as capable, but was up there, also just couldn't take it. And Duquesne's like, okay, screw it. No, I'll do it all. You guys just go ahead and rest. You get in the circuit, and now let's do the work. And Duquesne feckin' saves the universe. And when they offered to pardon him for all of his crimes because he saved the universe, he told them where they could take their pardon and how hard up they could stuff it. And went off and started his own civilization because he'd proven everything he needed to prove, that when it came down to saving the universe, Seaton didn't have it where it took. God, I love that character. So the Legos are in place, all the elements are there. Fast forward to the mid to late 90s, after 94, probably 95, 96. I'm gaming a lot, no surprise there, and a friend of mine wants to run some Mekton. That love Mekton Zeta. One of my favorite role playing games. It hasn't seen an update, despite promises of updates. I hadn't seen one in over a decade. And but you're playing mech pilots, piloting giant mechs. I love me some Japanese giant robot combat. So and Mekton did it better than just about anyone else because it really captured not only that sitting in a mech feel, but the anime feel of it. It had a vastly different feeling than BattleTech. And well, we're playing military pilots, but our game master Ben, because Mekton and Cyberpunk were produced by the same company, Artelsorian Games, uh, and ostensibly you could mix them up. It took a little mental effort. There weren't really official conversions at the time, although those did come around eventually. But he could take your Cyberpunk character and you could play that with your mech, and that was all fine. So I'm flipping through Ben's Cyberpunk book collection. I pick up Chromebook 2. I hit the back of the book, and I see the Gemini full conversion cyborg. Oh man. I took that page from Chrome 2, took it to work, copied it on the Xerox machine, took a marker, and gave that figure the black hair and the beard and mustache, and like, yeah, there he was. There was my character. There was the aesthetic. There was the physical ability. Where was the name and the personality that came with it? Well, there was really no doubt that was Mark Duquesne. I didn't bother to change it or modify it or anything. That was Mark Duquesne. That was the Mark Duquesne I was going to play. And that game, that first Mekton game, where I made Mark Duquesne, never actually happened, or at least I was not there with that group when it really took off. That game moved to another location, and I had other things going on over here. It's not nothing negative. It's just sometimes schedules and groups don't coincide. I showed up for a couple of those games when I had free weekends. They were okay, but it takes a very special kind of person to run a militarily based role playing game, and it just kind of didn't work. Not for me. Everyone else had a great time. Um, so fast forward a few more years. And one of my best friends ever, Brian Sullivan, God rest his soul, uh, came up with a game concept that he really wanted to run for us. It's called Britannia. And he managed to put together this world of high tech, high magic, high fantasy and adventure, giant wooden flying spaceships that looked like ships of the line. You had your three master with its solar sails that was carrying mechs on board that were giant knights that were there because the civilization on this one planet had to fight off monsters, but the planet was at the core of everything in this dimensional sheath, and that would drop things from every possible reality. And if you knew the angle to hit the sheath at when you left the planet, you could go to any reality. All you needed was the right coordinates. So you could take any game, any character you have made in any game, and drop it into Britannia. And Brian would weave them and their background into the story. And my God, he was so good at that. And well, there's giant robots, and we're using Mekton and basically Interlock at the time. Why not? I brought in Mark Duquesne. And Mark Duquesne fit into Britannia like bread and butter. He was an outworlder, uh, who did not fight the way they did not think the way they did, but he adapted to their society. He started to learn. They they preferred the medieval or Renaissance aesthetics, but he also found that they had a keen technical knowledge and that their society had twists and turns, and he was an intelligence officer. He wasn't just a mech pilot. He was a member of the intelligence corps as well. So adapting to a situation like that really worked out for him. There were people who had enough technical skill to not only understand and repair his cybernetic systems, but also modify them and enhance them from time to time. So he got some personal boosts. His original mech that he showed up in, well, the Britannians destroy all alien technology with the possible exception of the actual cyborgs that shows up, but the capabilities of his mech were built into, of his old mech were built into his new one. It all worked out really well. And with all of that society, and I played Mark Duquesne in that game for years. Even a chapter of the game where Duquesne faked his death so that he could go on an undercover operation and I could play a different character for a while, and that character died, and about 5 minutes later, Duquesne shows back up in a burst of glory and a crowning moment of awesome, having already beaten everyone else to the punch, and now he is outnumbered and everyone else is reinforcements. And God, that day, that was kind of amazing. And so that's between the masterful game mastering of Brian Sullivan and how much I was involved in every single aspect of the character concept. The group that I played with was just amazing because we had these constantly shifting, astonishing character dynamics that just worked out so well. Not all of them very friendly dynamics. We had some very adversarial dynamics here and there, and it kind of worked because that society had ways of dealing with that. You could honor duels or low war, where you worked behind their backs politically, and all of that stuff that Duquesne was just very good at. I got to play a character at the peak of competence, and that matched the character's source so well that I've never had a character that fit so perfectly in my head to the game that I was playing. And I would spend ample time between games doing art and writing background stories and just thinking up new cool stuff for Duquesne to do. I had a cool weapon in a video game, like the Waste M double-barreled lever-action shotgun from Marathon 2 Durandal. I statted those up in the game, and those were his sidearms. Just a character that involved me so much because I enjoyed playing him so much and because the characters appealed to me so much. And he was like a chunk of all the best parts of my childhood thrown together. And now I was able to roll dice and watch adventures happen as I was in these adventures. Just amazing. Brian Sullivan passed away. The same day the first Matrix movie came out. I can never remember it exactly, and it was April 1st. I forget the year. I think it was 98, 99. And with Brian Sullivan, a lot of things went by the wayside. We set down a lot of the things that he shared with us, and Britannia was one of them. For a while, I tried to write a Britannia book within a year of him passing. His mom joined in on the playtest games, and that was amazing. It didn't work out. Britannia is not a setting for everyone, and And the playtest made that very apparent that it wasn't going to fly with as broad an audience as we thought. Um, Someday I may still write a Britannia book. If it ever comes out, it will be Brian Sullivan's Britannia. Um, and uh, I'll probably do it in Victory. And it works really well as a core for a multiversal system. So maybe that's how I'll jump off a universe hopping or interdimensional uh, set of Victory games. One of these days, all of this time that I have. But every so often, I have thrown a Britannia session in here and there. Victory works very well for Britannia. I've had to fudge the mech rules every so often because I've never finished them. Still need to do that. And people do tend to really enjoy the games when Britannia's there. And I've moved the timeline way down from Brian's run because I wanted to separate it from his. I don't want to do any direct comparisons or run off of that stuff. And he based a lot of his stuff on his old characters. So DeCorum is a figure in the background, having risen to the rank from captain to grand admiral to retiring from grand admiral because he's effectively immortal at this point in time. Um, and sitting in the background taking he got married to one of the mech designers who is not in the same state of existence as him, so she would eventually pass, and DeCorum just kind of moved on with his life, being a assistance in the background for other player characters, terrifying assistance, master of intelligence, and other things. So every so often, stuff would just show up. Or if they screwed up, they would find out because suddenly there was a man with a black goatee and mustache in the shadows in their room informing them that they had messed up. And it's been a kind of a boogeyman to friends and foes alike, just making sure everyone was performing up to their potential. I am probably going to add DeCorum to I couldn't not add Mark DeCorum to the lore of the world when I write the book. Just I can't avoid adding some of Brian's seminal characters and other people that have come in and out. And one of the things that was so great about Brian's running it and how I tried to run it is that the characters definitely affected the history and path of the world's destiny. That there was no, you do these things, but no one seems to matter and everything goes on. No, it all changed everything. Something that I took from Brian's running, and as one of the parts of my Bible for running role-playing games, the player character's actions must matter. For good or ill, whether they succeed or fail, that matters to that setting that they're in. You're not going to come back to the next game and find that nothing has changed as a result of your actions, or more likely, everything has changed as a result of your actions, and you can move forward with that. If there's actions you're happy with, then yes, it's a better world. There's actions that you regret, maybe some things that happened to that world that now you need to fix. Really keys in the engagement. So that's a long answer to a short question. Favorite character? Mark DeCorum. Why? Because he is all of my favorite toys and my favorite concepts from my playtime and television time and reading time, growing up and into my teens, and being able to put all those things in one place and give them a name and a voice and be that for just a little while as I roll dice. Yeah. Yeah, somehow that chemistry has come, and a lot of my old characters have shown up as NPCs in my more recent games. My first D&D character has a series as a layer action. But of all of them, Mark Duquesne is just my favorite character. And because I've enjoyed playing every character that I've ever played, but there's just a special quality to playing someone who is so firmly based in all the reasons you think the way you do at the moment. Well, thank you for following me along in this particular rant through one of my characters' histories. Thank you for the question, Wes World Gaming. Looking forward to your next ones. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have any questions that you'd like to hear me address, things you'd like to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You will love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. You might want to hit that subscribe button. If you do, you might want to also hit the notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. It allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I'll see you next time on the next Matters of Decorum.